Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 3 of Dauphiné 2025. Today's race at 205 kilometers, 5 category climbs, but I want you to pay attention to the last climb because at 1.2 kilometers at 9.5% and summiting with about 19 kilometers to go on today's stage 3 of Dauphiné, this is the crucial moment if you went to bed last night when you're looking at this stage. Sure, if you look at the beginning of the stage, you see there's 2 category climbs that leave the block that are going to keep the riders busy for about 15 kilometers until they summit those. Then they'll come into about 30 kilometers to go where there's a time bonus sprint bonification there of 3, 2, and 1 second. So if you went to bed last night, you can look at this stage and you can say, well, it could be that the aggressive riders like Mathieu van der Poel, who came to Dauphiné to win stage 3. Tried to win stage 1, but he got beat by the GC riders like Tadej Pogacar. And if I take you into Tadej Pogacar's interview after stage 1, it was a remarkable interview. One of the best tactical interviews that I've seen Tadej Pogacar give, because he said as they're coming into the last 1K, he knows the Peloton's right behind him on stage 1, so he knows if Mathieu van der Poel wants to win that stage, he's going to have to go early or do most of the work, or some of the other riders will have to. But Tadej Pogacar said in his interview, it doesn't matter if we get caught because we're not going to gain time on the field behind because they're hot on the heels of us on stage 1. But the most important thing Tadej Pogacar said was, on stage 1, don't lose time to Remco Evenepoel and Jonas Vingegaard. That was the main priority on stage 1. So Tadej Pogacar, when you saw him pull out of that lineup there of the 4 big hitters in Santiago Buitrago, Jonas, Remco, Tadej, Mathieu van der Poel, and Santiago Buitrago up there, he knows he can't let Remco and Jonas Vingegaard go. So if they get caught, no big deal. The sprinters win the stage. He doesn't lose time bonuses. If Mathieu van der Poel has to lead out stage 1, Tadej Pogacar can follow behind and have a shot at winning the stage because he knows he has the speed to beat Jonas Vingegaard and possibly beat Remco Evenepoel. So that was a spectacular interview. Now, why did I give you that interview? Well, we go into stage 3. Before the stage starts, we see Mathieu van der Poel give an interview where the journalist says when he was talking to other riders before the interview with Mathieu van der Poel, he said those riders said that Mathieu van der Poel's decision on how he goes into stage 3 will decide whether or not if a break goes up the road or if it's a field sprint. So the journalist tells Mathieu van der Poel that. Mathieu van der Poel says, I think it's a good day. That could be a break goes up the road if the GC riders, Visma Lease Bike, UAE Team Emirates, and Soudal Quickstep's Remco team, if they don't want to race each other and they don't care if the break goes up the road because there's no GC battle guys up there. So Mathieu van der Poel has highlighted in his first interview before the stage that he believes this is the stage for the break. Okay, cameras are going to come on with about 65 kilometers to go. We're going to see a break up the road of 13 riders and Mathieu van der Poel's in it. The only problem is there's 8 or 9 riders in here 10 seconds down on the general classification. And when we go back and look at the Peloton, we see Tadej Pogacar, UAE Team Emirates, Soudal Quickstep, Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard, Visma Lease Bike. All 3 of those teams are pulling on the front, holding a monster 13-rider group up there with a ton of power in it, guys. So why are these 3 guys holding, why are these 3 teams, holding these 13 riders at that gap of about 1 minute 30? Well, when we see the 13 riders, and you know there's at least 8 or 9 at 10 seconds, but the main guy is Lipovets from Bora Hansgrohe that's in that group. Lipovets is a solid rider. He could win Dauphiné if this gap extended out further into minutes. Tadej Pogacar can take back a minute. There's no doubt about that. But can he take back 3 or 4? And if the 3 teams, the GC teams, sit up, Lidl-Trek's not going to pull this group back, even though they have the race leader's jersey, Johnny Milan, that's in the front group of the Peloton, but he's in the front half of the Peloton. They're not going to pull it back because they have Julian Bernard in this front group. Now, Julian Bernard would like to have everything come back together and have Johnny Milan make it over that last category climb that's 1.2 kilometers, but 9.5% with 19 kilometers to go, and give a shot there for Johnny Milan to be able to win the stage. But they're not going to pull this group back, that's for sure, because they don't have that strength. And when we watch the replay videos of parts of the stage that we didn't get to see, we see Johnny Milan was suffering at the beginning of the stage, but his Lidl-Trek teammates did a great job of bringing him back into the Peloton, where again we have the 3 main team, GC teams pulling on the front like crazy, holding Mathieu van der Poel close. Now we start looking at these 13 riders, and they're working well together, with the exception of Julian Bernard sitting on the back from Lidl-Trek, like I told you. But we come into about 40 kilometers to go, and the cameras find Mathieu van der Poel. He's covered in salt. There's salt all over all over the rider from Netherlands, Albacine de Koenig. I mean, he's got salt everywhere on his back, down his shoulders, everywhere. And when we go back and look at Tadej Pogačar at this same point in time of the race, well, his white rainbow band jersey looks spotless back there. But you'll say, Chris, it's white. You won't see the salt. Okay, his black shorts look spotless too. You don't see any salt on that. Okay, we go over and look at Johnny Milan in the yellow jersey. You don't see any salt on Johnny Milan. And we know, because I showed you the video where Johnny Milan suffered up the first 15 kilometers of today's race because he was off the back, but got back on there. But his jersey looks pretty clean. But you say, well, it's yellow. Okay, it's yellow. So let's go back and look at Max Schachmann, who's back at his team car from Soudal Quickstep, getting bottles, drinking, having a nice time. Well, his blue jersey from Soudal Quickstep looks amazing back there, and he's even spraying water on himself, staying all nice and chill right now with 40 kilometers to go in the stage, even though it's been fast back there in the peloton from 3 teams chasing, holding the 13 riders at the front at a minute and a half. Okay, let's go back up into the front group at this same point in time, thereabouts of about 40 kilometers to go. And let's look at the pictures and the jerseys of all the riders up here. They all look pretty clean up there too, but Mathieu van der Poel, of course, is covered in salt, as I already pointed out. So you know he's had a hard day, and when we go back and hear the commentator giving his thoughts at the beginning of the race, remember, his thoughts, not mine. I'm not telling you this is how it went. I'm telling you this is what I heard, because the video didn't come on to about 65 kilometers ago. But he said it was crazy, and Mathieu van der Poel was attacking like crazy, trying to get in this split. So that could be why he looks extra salty. He might have done much more work than the other 12 riders in this break, or maybe he hasn't just been in the heat lately before Dauphiné started, and now the salt that gets trapped up in the body is escaping right now on stage 3. But for sure, you could believe that Mathieu van der Poel's put in some big effort with 40 kilometers to go so far in the stage. Now, if I back you up a little bit off camera with 30 kilometers into the race, that's where Tadej Pogačar grabbed 2 seconds. So the virtual race leader jersey is Tadej Pogačar at this moment. Remco Evenepoel got 1 second in that time bonus sprint too. But Tadej Pogačar would be race leader at this moment because he was tied on time from Johnny Milan when he won the stage yesterday. But Tadej Pogačar won stage 1, and it was positioning in the peloton that had given the race leader's yellow jersey to Johnny Milan. So right now, Tadej Pogačar's virtual race leader jersey, UAE team members, Visma Lease bike, Soudal Quickstep is on the front chasing like crazy. We come into about 22 kilometers to go. It's crazy nervous at the back of the peloton, curb to curb, and we see those 3 main teams fighting for position, and EF Education's up there, AG2R is up there because they got sprinter teams, and Israel Premier Tech's up there with their sprinter guys trying to get them into the final 20 kilometer to go for the last and final climb here on stage 3 of Dauphiné, and the gap's being brought down to about a minute, 10 seconds up to the 13 riders in front. As these guys go into the final left turn to start this climb, Mathieu van der Poel's on the front. Only takes a few minutes before Lipovets comes around the right side of the peloton and he starts pulling on the front. Now right away we see Ineos get dropped off the back. That's Leonard, Michael Leonard getting dropped off the back, and they were the only ones with 2 teammates in this front group of 13. So Ineos still have Axel Laurent up here when we see Leonard getting dropped off the back. We go up a little bit further and we see it's Turgis from Total Energy getting dropped. Now we got to start thinking about the brilliance and the brain activity that's happening with these 13 riders. First off, I don't like the move of Mathieu van der Poel getting in this break because he broke the #1 rule on the butterfly effect. You never leave your team leader, and your leader never leaves your teammates, especially when you're a big-time first-page rider like Mathieu van der Poel, because with 13 riders in a break, he's got to cover 12. So if he doesn't have good legs, it could be a problem. If he has Tour de Flanders type legs or Milan-San Remo and Paris-Roubaix type legs, when they're on this climb, Mathieu van der Poel would be dropping everyone already because it's 9.5%. But instead, we look at the front. Who's up there? It's Julian Bernard up there and Ivan Romeo there from Movistar there going up the road. And Mathieu van der Poel's in the second group because there's a few guys just between him and between the 2 riders up front. So this tells me all that salt on the jersey from Mathieu van der Poel, okay, it means he really was hurting, and it wasn't just because his body produced a little more salt or some other reason that sometimes you can have some jerseys and he's wearing the green jersey sprint competition, so maybe that jersey's not quality. But now you know as he's getting dropped, as Julian Bernard and Ivan Romeo are going up the road, now you know that Mathieu van der Poel's in trouble. So this move here of trying to get a breakaway throughout stage 3 is not a good tactic. Now, what else do I want to talk about before we get deeper up this climb? Total Energy Turgis is getting dropped off the back with Julian Bernard going up the road. That means that Total Energy, they have sprinters. We back you up into yesterday's race. Total Energy has sprinters. AG2R has sprinter. Israel Premier Techs have sprinter. We all saw them battling big time in yesterday's stage. But now Total Energy is getting dropped out of the back of the group, which means that Turgis should have been sitting on this group once the Peloton kept them too close coming into this climb. Now, if we went early into this break developing 13 riders, and let's say the 3 teams of GC favorites let this break go way out, well, that's fantastic, because then Turgis can start attacking Mathieu van der Poel at some point in time in the pure climbers in this race and get a little bit of advancement before he hits his climb. But now all he did was take away most chances for Total Energy to be able to win this stage, unless, of course, the Peloton behind us coming flying into this left turn. You see him flying into it. UAE team members are all over the front. Remco Evenepoel, Poggies at the front. But where's Jonas Vingegaard? He's a little bit lost back there because Visma bike was the first time here in the first 3 stages of Dauphiné where they're a little bit out of place coming into that left turn to start this climb. With UAE team Emirates on the front and Pseudo Quickstep on the front. If these guys light this up, they could bring back the minute or 55-second gap that they got on the 13 riders right now with Julian Bernard going up the road. That's soon going to get some company because Tejada's bridging up. As we see Tejada bridging up to Ivan Dominguez and Julian Bernard going solo right now, Tejada comes up to Ivan Romeo there, and Ivan Romeo drops off. I call him Ivan Dominguez. Ivan Romeo drops off, and as he drops off, we see that Tejada bridges across to Julian Bernard. Behind, we see some problems right there for Mathieu van der Poel that still can't close the gap. And then out of the blue, coming from nowhere, is Florian Lipovitz from Bora Hansgrohe. He has bridged across the gap to the 2 riders in front to put 3 up there as they're going over the top of the KOM with about a 10-second gap on Mathieu van der Poel that's pulling back there with a group of, we'll call it, he's got 6-7 riders with him, 3 at the front anyways, must be about 5 riders sitting on the wheel there of Mathieu van der Poel as he's going over the top, about 10 seconds behind these guys. Then we see Uno X bridge across the gap. That's Lucknesson. Where did he come from? This puts 4 guys in the front group. Let's back the film up just a hair, because Lucknesson was pulling on the front just with about 300 meters to go in front of Mathieu van der Poel. So he must have lit up Mathieu van der Poel too and bridged across the gap to put 4 guys in the front. With these 4 guys driving it and Florian Lipovitz on the front going like crazy, we see him sprinting with the pain-looking expression on his face, and we see Ivan Romeo back there from Movistar drilling it with Mathieu van der Poel on his wheel, but there's still about 7 seconds. Camera makes it look a little bit closer than it actually is. And then Lipovitz sits up and eases off, and there's a little tactical games at the front with the 4 until Tejada takes over the front going down this descent. He gets a little bit of gap, and he comes out of this right turn at the bottom, sprinting with a little bit of gap on his 3 breakaway companions. But most important, coming out of this right turn, Mathieu van der Poel in the race leader's green sprint leader's jersey is flying out of this right turn. He's got Louis Barrera there, Intermarché, kind of sort of on his wheel, not exactly. I could tell you Louis Barrera right now is hurting big time, but Mathieu van der Poel is going to close up the gap. Louis Barrera is going to close up the gap about 12 kilometers to go, 11 kilometers to go. So we got 6 riders in the front group, and then just behind them, the 4 riders, Ivan Romeo from Movistar is doing huge work back there to pull up to the front. We go back and look at the Peloton. Max van Gils is having a mechanical problem. He's pulling over to the right side of the road. You see him give the Italian sign right there for, oh man, this can't get any worse right now. Now I'll fast forward a little bit for Max van Gils and show you at the finish line so you don't feel too bad for him, even though he loses 4 minutes at the end of the stage because he's got his woman waiting for him with smooches afterwards. So don't feel too bad for Max van Gils, who's wearing the #1 dossard right now for Bora Hansgrohe because, of course, Primoz Roglic won Dauphiné last year. So we get back into the action. We look at the Peloton behind. It's UAE team members still on the front. Sivakov is there, and Narvaez is doing the work for Tadej Pogačar, keeping this gap at about a minute and 10 seconds to the now 10 riders in front. Now, here's the next dilemma for Mathieu van der Poel. You are a first-page rider, and you are not riding with first-page riders up here. And on top of that, they know that they got to get away from you, so we start seeing attacks left, right, and center, and Ivan Romeo's throwing in a big attack. He gets a little bit of a gap, and we look behind. Lipovitz is closing up. There's a little bit of hill there, so Ivan Romeo's form started to drop a little bit. Lipovitz came flying by from Bora Hansgrohe and threw in his next attack, but that gets brought back too. It's followed by a second attack from Lipovitz that'll bring us into about 6 kilometers ago where we're in the litter zone. Lipovitz is on the right side of the road. He moves over to the left, and Yvan Romeo from Movistar throws in another attack here with just under 6 kilometers to go. As he starts getting a little bit of gap, they're playing games back there, and Lipovitz throws in another attack with Mathieu van der Poel, but Mathieu van der Poel doesn't want to come through and take a pull, or doesn't have the legs to do it. So we go up and look at Yvan Romeo, and his head's down. He's going into TT mode right now. He's extended it out to about 10 seconds. Behind it's games being played left, right, and center, all on Mathieu van der Poel, because nobody wants to take the rider from Albacete de Koenig to the finish line today on stage 3. So he's having to cover moves and trying to survive by having other riders cover moves. But you can't do it when you're a first-page rider. So everyone's attacking Mathieu van der Poel back there as Yvan Romeo is still accelerating on the pedals. We come into about 4 kilometers to go. He's got about 14, 15-second gap. So there's a little bit of hope left back there as we start seeing attacks from Ineos Axel Laurent. He gets a little bit of gap, but that gets brought back again, and it won't be until we start getting into 950 meters to go where Lipovitz throws in attack. He's got some company on his wheel. Tejada's locked on there, Louis Barredo's there, but the gap up to the Movistar rider, he knows he's going to win today's race as he comes under 400 meters to go. 200 meters to go, he starts looking back over his shoulder. He knows he's winning today's stage as he's got an expression of disbelief. His hands go up to his head, then they spread wide and then back up to his helmet there as it's disbelief as he's crossing the line. We look just behind him as Lipovitz was getting abused back there with 900 meters to go, pulling all the way into 150. Tejada throws in the acceleration for Astana. Louis Barredo's locked on his wheel. Lipovitz slots into the 3rd position, and they'll cross the line that way with Tejada getting 2nd. Louis Barredo rounding out the podium at about 14, 15 seconds back from the stage winner there of Yvan Romeo. Now, just behind, it's Mathieu van der Poel leading in the sprint with the rest over of the original breakaway guys here at about 29, 30 seconds back from the stage winner. He'll cross the line. He will not win the stage. He will not take the race leader's yellow jersey because that's going to go to Yvan Romeo after today's stage 3. Marvelous victory here from Movistar rider, but Mathieu van der Poel will gain some more points for the green jersey. Now behind, we look at the Peloton coming through, and we see it's Johnny Air there that's leading it across the line here, about 1 minute back from the stage winner. That means Tadej Pogacar, who's virtual race leader's yellow jersey, will cross the line and won't put himself into the race leader's yellow jersey. Of course, he's going to have to make up some time on tomorrow's individual time trial. And Johnny Milan, what happened to him? I left him out when we were going up the climb. Johnny Milan, of course, got popped going up the climb. He did his best to try to come back with some help of his teammates, but he's going to lose minutes on today's stage. So Johnny Milan, Lidl Treks out of the race leader's yellow jersey. Tadej Pogacar, Remco Evenepoel, Jonas Vingegaard have some time to make up on Lipovitz, but Movistar's rider, Yvan Romeo, takes the race leader's yellow jersey. Now, one more thing to talk about. We go back into the interview after the stage of Mathieu van der Poel. He said it was a gamble to be in this stage. He said he can't cover every attack, and it basically says it to the point that it's not his responsibility, but you put yourself into this position where Tadej Pogacar raced spectacularly tactically on stage 1 and knew exactly what he was doing. Here on stage 3, Mathieu van der Poel, you said in this stage that it was a pity that the race leader GC teams were chasing because Lipovitz was in the group. It was actually a gift for the GC teams to be chasing because Lipovitz was in the group, not harmful to you because that made the group have to stay together all the way into 20 kilometers to go for the last and final climb. Then you just had to have the legs to light everyone up. You didn't have the legs and you didn't have the form, and tactically you did not have the tactics. In fact, I'll call you a knucklehead on today's stage because with 13 riders going up the road, and the Peloton chasing that hard, that'll make those 13 riders work together, minus the Lidl Trek, Julian Bernard anyways, and that'll keep it all together so you're not getting attacked. If that time had extended out to 4 or 5 minutes or 6 or 7 because you didn't have GC guys in there, you'd have got attacked left, right, and center before the final climb, and you would have had no chance of winning the stage. Instead, you went into this race spending too much energy at the beginning of the stage, I'm sure, and I didn't even get to see it, and I'm going to call you a knucklehead because you wasted way too much energy. But possibly that energy will help you for the 25 Tour de France coming up in July. So like and subscribe. I'll see you guys for the individual time trial tomorrow, stage 4, Dauphiné. Like and subscribe. See you guys real soon.